If you're thinking about buying a home in Brookhaven, Georgia, it's important to understand what the housing market is like there in order to get the best home for your money. In the last 6 months, the average days on market for a listing here is about 17 days. So this is a little less than the average for all of Metro Atlanta, which goes to show that the amount of demand for a home in Brookhaven is a bit higher than the average suburb of Atlanta. Many people want to move to Brookhaven, so there's quite a bit of buyer competition here. There's a lot of great things about living in Brookhaven. Its proximity to Atlanta, the community feel that you have there, the family-friendly environment within the perimeter. And so all of these things are some of the things that make Brookhaven so popular and such high demand. And so a lot of people want to move here. And so if you're planning on buying a home here, you really need to have your ducks in a row. Things like having a pre-approval or having gone through underwriting is certainly very helpful, but that 17 days on market is certainly a good sign that there are a lot of people who want to move here. What's up, y'all? My name is Victor with Atlanta Suburban Living, and we put out videos every week about what it's like to live in Atlanta and the suburbs of Atlanta. Another thing that you should really know about Brookhaven if you plan on buying a home here is what the typical home costs here. So the average home price in the last 6 months for a home here in Brookhaven has been $920,000. So you can find homes as low as $500,000 or $600,000, but those are really like fixer-upper homes or homes from like the 60s or 70s. Even as far back as the 40s. So homes were really built there a long time ago. So you can find homes on that lower price range, but they're going to need some work. And so the average is right there about 920, 930,000. And then for a newer home, so a home built in the last 5 to 10 years, you're looking at closer to about 1.5 for the average home price. Now, keep in mind that all of these numbers that we're talking about are for single family homes, so not townhomes, not condos. These are detached homes that don't have shared walls. In just a minute, we're going to also talk about condos and townhomes because those are very common here in Brookhaven. Whether you plan on buying a single family home or a condo or a townhome, feel free to call, text, or email me anytime. I'm happy to help kind of understand what the market is looking like in those areas and for those kinds of homes. Thank you so much to everybody who has reached out. I'm always happy to help. But another number that we really need to talk about to understand what the housing market is like and what it's like buying a home in Brookhaven is how many new listings there have been here versus how many homes have been sold. You know, is there a lot of listings and so we have a buyer's market, or are there a few amount of listings or a few amount of homes for sale and so it's a seller's market? This is really a big factor when it comes to buying a home. You know, if it's a buyer's market, then the buyers tend to dictate a lot of the terms in a purchase contract. If it's a seller's market, then the sellers tend to dictate a lot of those terms. In the last 6 months, the number of new listings that we have seen in Brookhaven is 173, and then the amount of homes that have been sold is 115. So we're seeing far more homes coming on the market than we are seeing people buying homes. Now, I think it's safe to say that we are in a buyer's market here in Brookhaven because there are not as many people buying homes as there are people trying to sell homes. So what this looks like in detail would be like when you are submitting an offer to buy a home, you don't necessarily have to do 2 or 3 days for an inspection period. You can kind of do the longer end of that range of 3 days to 7 days. So doing something more like 7 days for an inspection period is totally acceptable in Brookhaven because it's more of a buyer's market than it is a seller's market. Another big one is like financing contingency, appraisal contingency. These are the kinds of things where the buyer has the advantage because it's a buyer's market here. Another big one is needing to sell your home in order to buy a home. In many places of Metro Atlanta, it can be difficult to do that, especially if it's a seller's market. Very few sellers would be willing to accept that kind of contingency. But here in Brookhaven, totally acceptable to be able to have that contingency of needing to sell your home in order to buy a home. Now, all of these numbers are very different for condos and townhomes, so let's run down these very quickly to see what the differences are. For average days on market for condos and townhomes, you're looking at 22 days, so a bit longer days on market. That is to say, a bit less buyer demand for condos and townhomes. And then the average sold price is way different. Instead of $920,000 for the average sold price for a single family residence, for condos and townhomes in Brookhaven, you're looking at an average price of $435,000. And when it comes to new homes for sale, new listings, it's 95 in the last 6 months, and homes sold is 63. So we're seeing that number is a lot closer. That is to say that it's less of a buyer's market if you're looking at condos and townhomes, whereas with single family residents, it's more of a buyer's market. Just pulling up a quick look at the housing market and what homes are for sale, I found a few homes that I think are very good examples and good representation of the kind of homes that you can find for sale in Brookhaven. 1139 Tennyson Place is a 4-bed, 4-bath home currently for sale for $950,000. It has 4,000 square feet, built in 1990, and this is definitely a very good example of the kind of home that you can find in Brookhaven. Also, 3730 Ashford Point is a 5-bed, 5-bath, 5,300 square feet, built in 1992, and they're asking 1.1. And then 1413 Windsor Parkway is a 5-bed, 6-bath home, about 6,600 square feet, just built this past year in 2024, and they're asking 2.5. I think it's also super important to understand why so many people are moving here. One of those reasons is certainly its proximity to the city of Atlanta. When we talk about suburbs of Atlanta, we tend to talk about cities that are 45 minutes to an hour and a half away from Atlanta. And so it's hard to live in these suburbs and commute all the way to Atlanta for work or for, I don't know, different events or whatever. And so that distance can be kind of a turnoff for some people, but Brookhaven literally borders the city of Atlanta. They're right next to each other. And so for being able to live technically in a suburb of Atlanta, but be 5 to 10 minutes away from Atlanta is one of the biggest draws for many people who live here. In addition to that, Brookhaven doesn't have quite that suburban feel where it's like all the same neighborhoods and the same houses, throughout the entire city. Brookhaven is more of a city feel where it has more character, more charm. It's more like the city of Atlanta, less like the suburbs of Canton or Marietta or Alpharetta. And so if you're looking for that kind of city feel, walkable to all the different places or public transportation, that's another big reason why people are moving to Brookhaven. And while it is very close to Atlanta, it doesn't have as many of the downsides of Atlanta. So very often people kind of shy away from Atlanta because they hear about the crime in the news or whatever, and most of that is true, but Brookhaven is a very safe part of Metro Atlanta, very family-friendly area, and so many people who want that kind of city lifestyle but don't want to be close to the crime choose Brookhaven for that reason. Now, with any city, there are certainly some downsides to living here, and if you're thinking about buying a home in Brookhaven, it's important for you to understand what the good sides are and what the downsides are. We don't want to just gloss over the downsides of living in Brookhaven and be like, oh, Brookhaven is the best place to live. It's a dream. There are downsides to living here, of course. And so if you want a full list of the pros and the cons of living in Brookhaven, you can check out that video right here. I'll see you in the next one.